Hey friends, Ben here. Just wanted to give you a quick disclaimer before we get into this episode. Right after we started recording, I discovered some technical difficulties. To make a long story short, there was a short in my mic cable. See what I did there? I did the best I could at the time. However, audio for this one is a little bit spotty. I've since rectified the problem, bought myself a new cable, so it won't happen in future episodes. But if things sound a little bit different, that's why. If this is a little shorter than normal, that's why. If my audio at times sounds quieter or garbled or like it was re-recorded several days later, that's definitely why. Something to keep in mind as you listen. Don't worry, it won't be a problem in the future. And also, please go to quillutenation.org to learn more about the actual fake facts, the real stuff for the fake stuff that we talk about in the episode. I'm going to stop now so you can listen. Take it away, me! On this episode of Bite Sized, we are watching and discussing the 28th scene of the movie Twilight. For those of you watching along at home, that is from 3608 to 3639. And now, on to the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bite Sized. My name is Ben Abair. I am your host. For those of you joining for the very first time, here's what's going on. I am watching the movie Twilight one scene at a time with a different guest every week. That means I send them anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes of movie, and we talk about it without really any other context. And whoo boy, are we on the 30-second sides of things this time, literally, but we'll get into that here in a second. Joining me this week is a comedian and actor, all-around Twilight enthusiast, Allie Gospel.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to Bite Size. Thank you so much
for
being
having me.
here.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm going to start this off by starting the way I always start these things. I did a really good job of saying that sentence. Allie Gospel, what is your history with the Twilight franchise?
Yeah, so I read all of them. I remember being at summer camp in like middle school and devouring those books and being so obsessed. Then the movies came out. I went to the first few in theaters, and then I got too cool.
Interesting.
And then like Eclipse to the end, I did not see in theaters.
Oh, for
I was
like the last three?
Last three. I was like, no. I think New Moon bummed me out. There's a lot of... we have a lot of movie before New Moon, but there's a lot of sitting in a chair. If I can come back for the chair scene.
Sure. In like 2 years when we get there.
Yeah. And it bummed me out, so I quit Twilight. I was like, I'm done.
The books too?
I finished all the books.
Okay.
But the movies, I was like, yeah. And then in probably late college and then definitely in the pandemic, I like fully was like, nope, these are great. These are masterpieces. I love these movies.
That's been a recurring theme. I've had a lot of guests who said that they started out on board, read all the books, whatever, and then dropped off. And then sometime suspiciously around the year 2020 got really super back into it.
Yeah, it became like our friend group. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Like we were trapped at home and we would watch the movies, and we have a Twilight group chat, and that's like all we do is just send memes. And I was like, this is a masterpiece, and thank God that we are around to see it.
How many times would you guess you watched those movies just in the year 2020?
I saw all of them once for sure.
Okay.
And then probably the first like two, probably 2 or 3 times a piece. But those later ones, I probably only watched once.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're still not sold on the later half. The
the first is the best.
I guess my question is, what's your beef then with Eclipse and Breaking Dawn 1 and 2?
And maybe it's because I didn't see them in theaters.
Maybe
because it took me some time to like watch them the first time.
You don't have that nostalgic
There's
connection.
also like plot in those ones. I just want the first two where like nothing happens.
Just vibes.
Just vibing.
I mean, there's barely any plot in the third one, I would argue.
True, yeah.
It's just about they gotta fight some vampires.
There's like bad wigs in the first few.
There's like bad wigs in all of them.
That's true. They're bad. I don't know. I like the latter ones, but I don't know. That first one, especially that like director and the blue vibes, like everything feels blue and dark and Oh no, what did I do?
Allie Gospel, that's the blue bell. That may be the quickest and least coerced blue I've ever gotten out of a guest. Yes, that's right. If you're new to the show, you need to know that guests really have a tendency to bring up just how blue the movie Twilight is.
Yep.
And you got to it so fast that I almost forgot. I almost let it go without ringing the bell.
It's my favorite part of the aesthetic.
No, mine too. I completely agree. I like the way it looks, and I'm sad that they don't do it in the future.
Yeah, no,
movies.
it's just the first one.
Just the first one, and then the other four, you can tell.
I think the director's changed.
The director
does
change,
okay.
yes. Catherine Hardwicke directs the first one, and then Chris Weitz directs the second one. My theory is that after the first one takes off and is the big hit of 2008, I can't name a single other movie that came out in 2008 that made more money than Twilight.
I don't know what movies came out in 2008.
The Dark Knight came out in 2008 and made a whole lot of money. But anyway, Catherine Hardwicke makes the first one, and then after a certain point, the studio is like, okay, we have to start taking this seriously now. This isn't just one little thing. This is a whole franchise. And so stuff like weird color grading is a little riskier, and we're not going to let that fly as much.
That makes sense.
And then she goes on to make Red Riding Hood, a movie that no one has ever seen. Yeah, starring Amanda Seyfried. Yeah.
I forgot that movie existed.
That's everyone did. America.
Wasn't there a Kristen Stewart Red Riding Hood?
No, you're thinking of Snow White and the Huntsman.
Sure am.
And then starring Kristen Stewart and
Charlize Theron.
Chris Hemsworth. I think Charlize is the wicked, the stepmother queen in that.
Find me someone who doesn't fear the dark forest to hunt her down.
Hey! If I refuse. Who are you? Why is the queen wants you dead?
You should know you're the one hunting me.
And then, weirdly enough, they made a sequel called just The Huntsman, The Winter's War, without Kristen Stewart. It's a Snow White movie without Snow White. It's just Chris Hemsworth. I don't know. I could talk a lot about that,
honestly,
apparently.
That should be your next podcast.
No, I really shouldn't, because those movies are uninteresting.
Yeah, and Twilight is amazing.
Twilight's great. There's a lot to talk about in Twilight. There's not a lot to talk about in either of those Snow White movies.
Or in this scene that we watched.
Oh, I highly disagree. There is a lot to talk about in this scene. And before we get into it, I want to preface with just a little backstory. When I asked you to do this, you asked me what scene you would be talking about. And I couldn't remember what was coming next, because I told you the last one that I had recorded was the guy in the boat being eaten by the vampires, and I told you get whatever comes after that. And you said you couldn't remember, and I said I couldn't remember, and turns out there's a reason for that. Because this is 30 seconds of nothing. Is that too strong a way of putting this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unneeded transition.
Yeah, I'll give you the big overview of this 30 seconds of movie. It is one of my favorite things, actually, to see in any movie, it's a dramatic Googling scene.
Yes.
It is a montage of Bella wants to learn more about Quileute legends, so she Googles that and then finds a bookstore where she can maybe learn more. That's it. Then now we'll actually talk about the scene. But one of my favorite things, there was a period of maybe 10 years when the internet was new and exciting and no one was quite sure how it worked. When people were like, oh, Googling stuff is exciting and dramatic. And it's like, you try to convince us that your main character who's doing this Googling is doing some sort of detective work or something. But like, it's not coming off that way at all.
No. And also, when you watch it, she immediately scrolls past like the first 5 links, which I was like, that is not how Google works.
We're going to get deep into those links here in a second.
Oh, do you have that?
Okay. The whole point of this show is me overanalyzing the podcast.
Sure.
The movie to death.
Yeah.
And when I have nothing but 30 seconds of movie, you know for sure I'm going to take a look at one of my other favorite things, which is just sort of fake filler text that no one was ever supposed to see. And we're going to get into that. But before I get too far away from what this scene is at its nature, there's like, did you ever see Catwoman with Halle Berry?
A long time ago.
There's a great scene in that. It's another great dramatic Googling scene. And the reason that I say this all happened when Hollywood hadn't quite figured out how the internet worked, because the Google searches that people do are just so vague and terrible and usually pretty bad.
No key terms.
No. Boolean operators not in there at all. Their SEO is awful. I think the best example of this is in the Catwoman movie where Halle Berry wants to figure out why this cat seems to have given her magic powers. And so she Googles the cat in history,
no.
which is just the broadest possible term. She might as well have just
history.
Googled cat.
Yeah.
And Bella,
Which is kind of what Bella does later. I will say this movie loves Google.
It does.
And I think she Googles stuff or looks in books later in a later movie. She likes to research.
She does.
And
It's not dramatic or exciting at all.
No. But I do love that later on, not to spoil future scenes, she just Googles the word like vampire. And I'm like, you're doing great, girl.
There's a spoiler alert for a scene that we haven't gotten to yet, but I think the term she Googles is cold ones.
Cold ones, that's right.
And the results she get have nothing to do with beer and everything.
Right, yeah,
to do
why
with,
is it only, yes.
But all that aside, in this scene, she Googles Quileute legends and actually does a pretty good job of, getting what she's looking for. That's a decent search term.
It is, but I'm surprised because she's Googling this because Jacob told her a legend.
Yes.
Of his people. But my question is, if you have Google, why do you want a book? That's me. I mean, I do like a book. I love going to a bookstore, but I have that moment where she Googles to find a book and then she Googles stuff she finds in that book. I think the book is not needed.
And maybe this is another side effect of the writers not really knowing how the internet works.
Yeah, and maybe there weren't things uploaded onto the internet at this point yet that would have been that helpful, but it did make me laugh that it was like, oh, this is so that she can go somewhere else.
The results she get are kind of vague. And so, I guess the books she does have that comes up, that's sort of the only thing she has to work with. We can, I guess, spend some time talking about the results that come up because they're truly fantastic.
I'm so glad that you took the time to figure out what they were because I just watched them because they go by so fast.
They do. I essentially have to watch these things frame by frame because there's, in a lot of these scenes, there's not 30 minutes worth of podcast unless you really, really overanalyze things. So let's just start getting into it.
Let's do it.
There's, I think, about 5 or 6 results worth looking at. Well, the first result talks about there's been many stories, legends, and fables written about the Quileute, and somehow it's hard to tell because it's cropped weird. You can't see everything, but it compares it to Little Red Riding Hood. Wolf, but also that's Catherine Hardwicke's next movie, so is that
That's true. Maybe she's just teaser.
Oh, the next one is probably my favorite. This is the second one. It promises Quileute legends in film at the Cranberry Institute. Free lunch. I don't know what the Cranberry Institute is. It's not cranberry with an N. It's Cranberry. Cranberry Institute. Free lunch.
I'd like to think that that's someone's grandmother's maiden name,
Maybe.
And they're just I'm going to put their name in there.
Anyway, I Googled it and there's no Cranberry Institute. There's a Cranberry Institute, but it's in Massachusetts and it's about the cranberry.
Free lunch.
I get to watch a movie. I get a free lunch.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. We've got American Quileute Legends, History of the Quileute Ritual, something about they went along their ways strong and sleek and scarcely, and then it cuts off from there, so someone clearly had fun with that. Oh man, we've got one about 2 wolves, one named the Beast and one named Midnight. Incredible.
Good names.
And then we get to, I think, my favorite of the fake search results. The one she actually clicks on is book links, back when Google would actually recommend more stuff like that. And these books are all fake, but their names, the authors are all people who worked on Twilight.
Fun.
So you've got one book by Logan Welch, who was Robert Pattinson's stunt double.
Great.
You've got a book by Gillian Borer, who was on the production team.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. And then we've got a book called Legends of the Slapping Beaver by Patty Sanchez. And there was no Patty Sanchez who worked on Twilight, but there was a Patty Sanchez Smith who was a producer.
Who do you think is the person that gets given this job of you have to make the Amazon book links?
Right. You have to come up with this fake Google page that's going to be shown for all of 5 seconds. I don't know. I wish I did know.
I know.
I wish I could talk to them about how much effort went into that.
Clearly some.
I mean, yeah.
Not a ton.
I guess my question is, if you are the person who has to put together this fake Google page, do you bother sitting down and researching the actual Quileute people and books about them. Because like if you do an actual Google search right now for Quileute legends, you get actual information.
Oh, solid.
Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah.
So I guess like
You would hope they would,
right.
But I doubt they did.
But maybe like for copyright reasons, there's just stuff they can't use.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you'd hope that they'd reference like actual things, but also knowing this movie, I feel like I would not be shocked if they put no thought or time into just making a fun thing.
Yeah, I'm sure that's and I like whoever put this together clearly had a good time of, I don't know, mentioning your coworkers in the fake book titles, I guess. And that's entertaining. She goes to a website for a local bookstore because Bella supports local businesses.
She does. She goes to Small Business Saturday.
Well, she wants an excuse to go into town and everything like that.
What is it? Where did the town that she has to go
Port
to?
Angeles.
Port Angeles.
Yeah.
I was like, it's something. And the map was so funny because it's that like old school, like just a still photo. And then the star is really big. And I was like, that's a whole
That's like
block.
2 or 3. Yeah, that could be anywhere. I guess just sort of get in the area and hope you figure it out.
Look at the map, write down the address.
Yeah.
Take that address with you in the car.
Yeah.
And then hope that you find that place.
Right. She's on the website. The first link she clicks on looking for this book, one of the options that pops up is Borders.
And Barnes & Noble is still around, but it was like
Borders,
Borders, Barnes & Noble, and then these like small
those don't
bookstores.
exist either.
Oh,
There were 3 there was Amazon. I again looked way too much into it. There was Amazon, there was Barnes & Noble, there was Borders, and then there was Little Brown, does not exist.
Oh.
Thunderbird and Whale, which is the fake one that she actually goes to. And then something called Stratton and Smith, which also does not exist.
Man, I used to have like MapQuest pages in my like passenger seat,
Yeah.
Like it gave me those vibes of like, oh yeah, I get one glance at this map and then it's all, let's hope that I'm doing this
you have
right.
to print it out and look at it while you're driving. And if something is slightly wrong, it's not going to correct you.
I also like that I guess Jacob told her as much as he knew, but I like that she has a literal source of information. She's like, I need a book. She's like, I'm not going to go ask more questions of the people that know.
Well, she can't let on what
That's
she
true.
suspects, I guess.
Yeah.
She's got to figure out more about this
The cold
weird
ones.
secret. She doesn't know they're cold ones yet, though. I think she figures that out from the book that she's going to buy in about 2 or 3 scenes.
Oh, man.
She writes down an address on a Post-it note. I got to say, her handwriting, not that great. Didn't love it.
I didn't pay attention.
Hard to read. It's hard to read, and I know that because it took me a long time to figure out what address he was trying to write down so that I could look it up and see if it's a real address in Port Angeles, and it's not.
Is Port Angeles real?
Port Angeles is real, yes.
Okay. And I think Forks is real, right?
Forks is real.
Okay.
I've been to both of those places.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I know. I was like, I think Forks is real because I like know of people that have like, gone to Washington State to like do the Twilight thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love these movies more than anything, but I'm not like actively like pursuing it,
My wife and I, when we started dating, her first birthday that we were together, we went to Seattle. Specifically so that to do other things, but mainly so that we could rent a car and drive out to Forks for her birthday.
That's so fun.
It was, it was a pretty drive. Not a lot going on.
I can't imagine.
It's a really small town. There's some Twilight memorabilia to look at, and that's fun. See some. What we didn't know when we drove out there is that most of the exterior shots in Forks were actually shot in a larger town in Oregon. So like a lot of the stuff,
like the house and
we would, like the house and the high school and like a
the
lot of it.
Station.
Yeah, that's just not in Forks. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show before, but you've got your team Edward and your team Jacob. I am team go to college.
I always said I was team either Carlisle or Charlie. I didn't take a team because I hated both of the guys.
Now that's 2 very different implications there. Like, what is Team Carlisle? Is she supposed to marry him?
No, just like I thought he was a good dude.
Okay, cool.
I was also Team Haymitch in Hunger Games. I was like very against the love story. I was like, you're a badass woman and you can do whatever you want. So I'm gonna be the fan of like the friend. Yeah, Team Carlisle.
I think that's good. Honestly, that's probably.
He's the only one who's like doing any good.
He's responsible. He's rich.
Yeah. They all have very nice cars.
They do. They have a big old house. He's a doctor.
Yeah.
Good, solid job.
Honestly, she could marry him.
Well, I mean, he's got a wife and everything.
Well,
but
I mean,
what?
I was just like, I'm just saying.
All right. Okay. If things break bad.
I can be Team Carlisle because I mean, not to get into too much, but I think Edward's a creep, and I think Jacob is manipulative and also a creep. And I remember like people were like really taking hard sides, and I was like, I was Team Edward for the longest time, and then when I got like older and actually like formed opinions about like feminism and like reading this through like a feminist lens, I was like, no, these guys both suck.
Yeah, it was like watching them as an adult. It really is like, oh, this is unhealthy in a lot of ways.
But I love it. I got a text from my dad.
Would you say he's more of a Charlie or a Carlisle as dads go?
I would have to say Carlisle just because he was around and like cared about me and like was a good father. But I did get a text from him like maybe 2 years ago. So we were like 2 years into the pandemic, and he just texted me, no context, I'm Team Edward. And I went, oh my God. I was like, what is happening?
Why?
He started watching them and he got really invested. And I think it's just because he didn't like Jacob.
Was he bored? Was he just trying to understand you better? Like, what was going on
Maybe
here?
both. I think he was bored, and he also likes like fantasy and stuff. And so I think he thought it was going to be more like
True Blood or something?
Or like Lord of the Rings.
He could not have been more wrong about
very
that.
Wrong. And so but he took a side, which I was like, all right.
Good for him.
And I think he was an informed decision. He'd already watched like 3 at that point.
Really?
So
okay. If I had to choose between Edward and Jacob, I guess Edward.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just not a Jacob fan in general. He's a little whiny.
Yeah.
He's got some living to do, some maturing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Edward's, he's been 17 a while, so
he's 100 years old, which comes with its own complications.
Yeah, but he's
issues.
at least mentally mature.
At least he's cool about
emotionally
it now. Right.
somewhat mature.
Yeah. Let's start to wrap this up. If you had to give this scene a name, what would it be? And this is also going to be the name of the episode, so make it good.
I will call this Investigative Journalism.
Investigative Journalism. Is this what you think journalism is or something?
I just assume that all reporters are just Googling random phrases that they've heard someone say.
And clicking on the 5th or 6th result.
The 5th link down.
Not the first one. That's too obvious. That's not investigative. If you want to be investigative, you gotta
go in the
work
weeds.
your way down into it and find the bookstore and all that.
And then go to she goes there.
Yeah.
Spoilers. But like she's doing the work. She's out in the field.
She could be having a free lunch.
She could be at the Cranberry Institute.
She could be at the Cranberry Institute watching a film and having a free lunch. I really wish that had been the movie that
oh my
we
God.
see.
If that was the next 4 scenes was her at the Cranberry Institute.
Yeah.
A much better movie.
Maybe finding a love of old cinema and developing her own personality instead of just worrying about these boys all the time.
And maybe they wouldn't even get into what she's trying to research. Maybe it's a different legend.
Who knows? But
and then she goes on a different path and pursues her art.
And she gets a free lunch out of it.
Yes.
There's really no downside to that. She really had an incredible option before her, and she just completely ignored it.
Yep.
Speaking of incredible options before you, if my listeners want to follow you on social media or see you in live as they have the incredible option to do, where can they do so?
Yeah.
That's a great segue.
I love it. My socials are not interesting. But,
okay, good.
I play with Anarchy, the improvised rock opera at the I.O. Theater here in Chicago every Thursday night with you.
Cool. If you want to follow the show on social media, please do so at bitesizedpod_ on Instagram and TikTok, assuming that's something you can still legally do when this comes out. I don't know. If you want to send an email to the show, maybe about how bad my audio is and recommendations for a better XLR cable, you can send that to myfavoritetwilightpodcast at gmail.com. Please follow the show, subscribe to it, recommend it to people, review it. Thank you so much to my editor, Ben Oxer, who I really want to thank extra hard today because of the stuff that is going on for the listener. I don't know how much this has been left in, but I'm currently holding a cable so that it doesn't short out and you can actually hear my voice.
Hey, yeah, it's perfect. No notes.
Thank you to the band Swimwear Department for letting me use their song Mauled to Death as the theme of the show. Thank you so much for listening. As we always say at the end of every episode,
Chomp, chomp.
chomp, chomp. See you next time.
Cranberry.
Cranberry Institute. Free lunch.